A nossa musa brasileiríssima Chitarra também postou uma nova atualização de seu shape, que está incrível. Dá uma olhada aí. Já Diogo Montenegro ontem bugou a internet novamente.
And I think that Ramon and Urs are going to have to improve a lot to be able to move past a guy like Breon.
Madrugão Suplementos, a maior loja de suplementos do Brasil. Cupom MN. E aí, marombada, suavidade. Quer ficar por dentro de tudo que rola no mundo da maromba? Então não perde tempo e já se inscreve aqui embaixo. Ontem, o canal Nick Strengh Powers fez as suas apostas para Classic Physique no Arnold Classic Ohio. Bom, dá uma olhada aí no que o cara disse.
There's only 9 competitors, and I think top 6, let's do kind of a speed run here. So in 6th place, I've got Divine Wilson. Out of all the guys that are outside of the main Olympia guys that we're familiar with, Divine Wilson, I think, has an insane physique, and he's a guy that I see being a first call-out guy here. I think he's on par with some of these top Olympian guys like Urs Kalsinski, like Ramon Roca. I think Divine is going to be right there in that conversation and right there in that first call-out. So in 5th place, I think you're going to have Peter Molnar. Peter Molnar is a tremendous classic physique competitor. He's a fantastic bodybuilder, but I think the reality is he got into the IFBB and started competing at some of these bigger shows really on the tail end of his career. I think his best, era of being competitive was almost a decade ago. I think his best physique was like 10 years ago. And right now, while he still has an incredible physique, it's not as good as it once was, and that's why you're seeing him maybe not have the highest placings at some of these bigger shows, but he's able to win some smaller pro shows to get to the bigger ones. But I still think he would be able to pull off a top 5 spot here because he is his physique is very impressive, and it's very pleasant to look at from a classic physique aesthetic standpoint. So I think we'll see Peter Molnar in 5th. Now, 4th place. This is going to be the interesting one, and this will probably be the one that most people disagree with me on. I'm going to go with Urs Kalsinski in 4th place, and I'll explain to you guys why. So Urs was 4th place at the Olympia, behind, of course, Breon, Terrence, and Chris Bumstead, and he beat Ramon Dino. Now, Urs has intentionally kept things under wraps since the Olympia. We basically haven't seen any physique updates from him at all. Now, even though he says that's intentional, and he says that, he's trying to keep this element of surprise and suspense, we don't know what he looks like, so I can't say whether or not I think he's improved since the Olympia. So that's why I'm putting him in 4th. All we've really seen is pictures of him having a death face recently. But the reason why I have Ramon Dino placing ahead of him in 3rd place is because I think Ramon has improved since the Olympia. And I also think it was close between Ramon and Urs. And because Ramon has posted so many physique updates, and also because Ramon has competed since the Olympia, we know pretty much exactly what he looks like, and I think he looks better than he did when he competed at the Olympia. So I think he improved enough to move ahead of Urs at this Arnold Classic. But maybe Urs improved a ton also, and we just don't know that, and maybe he proves me wrong and he's in the top 3. But that being said, I think Ramon will be top 3. In 2nd place, I think Breon is going to take 2nd. I think history is going to repeat itself at both of the past 2 years. Terrence was able to beat Breon. Breon was not able to beat Terrence. I don't think that's going to change at this show because Breon is another guy that's in his 40s. He's older. He's clearly not, his placings are not improving. He's not getting any better from a placing standpoint over the past couple years, but he is getting older. So I don't see him changing that trend and beating Terrence this time around if he hasn't been able to do it for the past 2 years. Now, looking at these recent updates of Breon, I think he looks very impressive. He looks like he's in really good shape, and I think he even said this is the best his back has ever looked at this point in any prep from a detail standpoint. So I think he's still going to be dangerous, and I think he's going to be still too dangerous for Urs Kalsinski and Ramon Dino. I think he's going to be able to maintain, that top 2, right on par with Terrence spot, and I think that Ramon and Urs are going to have to improve a lot to be able to move past a guy like Breon. I mean, he is a former Mr. Olympia champion. He's not going to be an easy guy to beat for these new up-and-comers. And with that being said, I've got Terrence Ruffin, Ruff Diesel, for the win here. I think, I really think Terrence is going to be a future Mr. Olympia champion classic physique. I think Chris is going to win it for a few more years, but I think Terrence has what it takes to win that title one day. I think he's on top of his game. He looks better than he's ever looked in these update pictures that we've seen going into this show. He certainly looks better than he looked at last year's prep, at this point in last year's prep for the Arnold, and he won last year's Arnold. I think this is Terrence's show. I think he's the best poser in this lineup, and I think that's very important at a show like the Arnold Classic, where that's a very valuable attribute. He's runner-up at the Olympia, and like I said, he's beaten Breon 2 years in a row now. And if I don't think some of these new up-and-comers like Ramon and like Urs can beat Breon yet, I don't think they can beat Terence yet. I think this is his show.
É, marombada. E aí, você concorda com a fera? Ele também falou sobre a Open, que se vocês quiserem, comenta aí embaixo que eu traduzo e coloco aqui também no canal. Já Diogo Montenegro ontem bugou a internet novamente. Ele postou uma atualização de seu shape e escreveu: como mágica, pesando 79 quilos, simetria, proporção, condição, musculatura. Mas seu adversário Banks também postou sua nova atualização, marombada. E em seguida, parece que o cara andou ficando meio bolado. Em seus stories, ele postou um comparativo feito por uma página brasileira e escreveu: estão tentando me ferrar. Minha foto tem 3 semanas, postada em 24 de janeiro. E na sequência, ele colocou algumas fotos novas e antigas e continuou: realmente não importa de quando é a foto. É, marombada, parece que a Trembo tá batendo no cara. Erin Banks é brabo, mas Diogo não fica atrás. Mas na sua opinião, quem leva essa? Comenta aí. E você aí já deve estar por dentro que a creatina anda em falta no mercado e os preços vão aumentar. Se eu fosse você, eu corria lá na Madrugão e já garantia a sua. E usando meu cupom MN você consegue um descontaço exclusivo. O link tá aqui embaixo para vocês na descrição. Já nossa musa brasileiríssima Chitarra também postou uma nova atualização de seu shape, que está incrível. Dá uma olhada aí. Já yarishna, que sobe também com ela no Arnold Classic Ohio, é outra que vem postando atualizações frequentes. E o que chama atenção nela, como de costume, é a condição extrema. Tá na pele. Já a Isa Pereira Nunes foi outra que mostrou um pouco de como anda a sua condição, onde no vídeo ela diz que são de alguns dias atrás. E nossa outra brasileira, Angela Borges, também segue no game, se preparando. Ela, que é a top 2 Olímpia, segue como favorita do evento. É, marombada, a Wellness vai pegar fogo ou não vai? Pra quem vai a sua aposta? Comenta aí. Ai, não se esquece de se inscrever aqui no canal e ativar o sininho pra não perder nada do mundo da maromba. Um grande abraço, marombada!